Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by FCW Games and the Wondrous and Dangerous Consortiums and Zendria World/Lore Book Kickstarter. We will get into more details about our sponsor in just a little bit. Well, welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Thursday, June 18th, 2026. This is live stream 1336. Yes. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, it is super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop role-playing game news, and then I'll usually tackle a topic related to our hobby. And tonight, we're actually going to dive on in. We're going to take the ultimate Grognard Test, as famously appeared in a few Dragon magazines. I think they started off around, it was like issue 226, something around there. They did it a few times. So I have tweaked it a little bit. So we are going to dive on in. We're going to tackle that ultimate Grognard Test. But of course, we're going to also get into the role-playing game news of the day. But before we do that, I should also mention, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are never going to run across here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on over at thegaminggang.com. Then, of course, because this is a live show, that also means there is chat available. Now, you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least an hour before you can take part in chat. So if you check off that box and you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my absolute best to respond. First out the gate tonight is Agile Monk joining us, good friend of the show. Kathy Evans is with us. The lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is chiming in. She is our chat moderator. Semper Buffo is with us, as is Zarkwan and Michael Berry and J-Man. So welcome to you all. Good to see you. So let's talk about our sponsor this week. That's right. It is FCW Games and the Wondrous and Dangerous Consortiums in Zendria World/Lore Book Kickstarter. So you might be wondering, what is Wondrous and Dangerous Consortiums? Well, it's approximately 200 pages of carefully curated content to provide depth of study and novelty for use in your world building. An in-depth system and tool set for creating your own consortiums. In the realm of tabletop role-playing games, the ultimate objective is to immerse players in a vibrant and engaging narrative. As a game master, your task extends beyond crafting intricate plots and settings. It encompasses creating a world that players can interact with meaningfully. This involves recognizing the profound impact that well-developed consortiums can have on the overall gaming experience and how closely tied they ought to be to player engagement. Wondrous and Dangerous Consortiums will give you 4 pillars to help you shape the foundations of your organizations. 7 articulately defined types of consortiums to help categorize the powers that be. Over 30 dimensions to help cement the boundaries and elements. 19 highly detailed tables providing clear ways to differentiate your institutes, as well as 14 example consortiums fleshed out and ready to use in your world or to help you create your own ideas. So what is Zendria? Zendria is a living world where old and new fantasy collide, highlighting the organic interactions of the various consortiums and their power structures. Zendria is a place where you can tell your own stories from many perspectives and support many ideologies, as they are all alive and driving this vast and diverse setting. It's a place for your player-driven adventures to come alive. This Kickstarter is just on the verge of funding. It's only a few $100s shy of its $32,000 goal. It's got 7 days to go. This is running through June 25th. And of course, I should mention our friend Agile Monk, who is hanging around in chat right now, is heavily involved in this Kickstarter. In fact, the books even say Agile Monk Presents. How's about that? So very, very nice. I have pointed out, I shared a preview video of the Consortium book. I did not have an opportunity to check out the World Guide, but the Consortium book is mighty, mighty impressive. You're seeing examples of the spreads in that book. Excellent artwork, really good content. I highly, highly recommend it. It's not a review video, though. I will mention the reason why is because it wasn't the finished product. So I don't give a review score to anything that's not a finished product. But I'll tell you what, that video is as close to a review as I could possibly get. If you are curious how to find this Kickstarter project, easiest way, go to thegaminggang.com. Take a look. You will see these big ads right up top. Click on that. That'll take you right on over. All right, we got a few more people who were popping on into chat. We've got Carrie Cole with us. It is their first time making it to one of the streams live, so welcome aboard. Make yourself comfortable. Keith Ulu's with us. W. Forge has hit chat. Chris Lundgren's with us once again. I do see Harvey Chuckles and Laconic Lane are hanging with the gang tonight, too. So we've got a nice chat off and running. Laconic Lane's asking, what's the next book Wizards is going to rewrite and republish? Well, I'll tell you what it won't be. It won't be Dark Sun. I know a lot of folks. What did Wizards do? Did they renew copyright, or they did something regarding Dark Sun, and that got a bunch of people thinking, "Oh my God, that's it. That's what's coming. That's what's next." I'm not seeing that. Not seeing that. Although it'd be cool. I'll be the first to point out, and I have mentioned these things quite a few times over the years, all the various different realms of Dungeons and Dragons, I had zero experience with up until 5th edition. So Dragonlance, I was gone. I was running Call of Cthulhu. We were playing other stuff. So Dragonlance, Ravenloft, Eberron, all of that stuff. Dark Sun, although Dark Sun always looked like it was kind of cool. But Spelljammer, all that stuff, I had zero connection to. So I was never one of these people who were sitting there like, oh, come on, Wizard of the Coast, please, please, please relaunch Eberron, please. No. Nope. So, all that was new to me, and I was like, oh, okay, all right. All righty. Let's see. Keith Lewis said there was a playtest with what were apparently Dark Sun themed subclasses. Is that what it was? Was that what got people thinking, oh my gosh, it's gonna be Dark Sun? And if it would be Dark Sun, they would have to basically remove everything that made it unique. Okay, not everything. They could leave the desert. But it wasn't Dark Sun fairly grim? And I don't mean grim dark, but I mean it was kind of a it certainly wasn't a high fantasy setting by any stretch of the imagination. Keith Ulu says they played Spelljammer twice. Sounds like Chris Lundgren's talking about a new video they uploaded on their channel. Chris is always here promoting other things other than the gaming gang. Have you ever noticed that? Chris pops in, he's talking Planet of the Apes role playing. It's not even the officially licensed Planet of the Apes either. It's this like third-party knockoff Planet of the Apes. It's actually called Realm of the Monkeys. Chris knows I'm teasing him. Say hello to Buddy for me. The cockatiel. Let's see. Mark Hawkswell's with us. Klontos has popped on in. Very cool. Very nice. Agile Monk says, little known fact, they stayed in the Queen Mary honeymoon suite for their wedding night way back in the day. Was it haunted? Did you see a ghost? I remember tonight's just a hanging out, goofing off kind of night, right? Because we're going to do the ultimate Grognard Test. So we're not like really pressed for time. Plus, I should mention, next week, I have only one show. You may have recalled, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I mentioned I have to go house sit. I have to basically pet watch. So I have to do that starting Wednesday, and I will be gone. I believe it'll be 6 or 7 days. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't going to be videos. There just won't be any live streams. So what I'm going to try to do this weekend is just shoot a bunch of raw video. And that way, when I'm hanging out house sitting, I will have my laptop with, which is a pretty powerful laptop. And I will do my editing and, graphics and things like that. And also be posting the videos. Although I will say, I bet it's going to take a hell of a lot longer for me to upload those videos than it does currently, because my upload speed is 500 millibits per second. I know that's not going to be the case when I get over to my brother's house. But, what can you do? Anywho, there used to be a show on Fox, and it was a supernatural show. Trying to remember, it may have been called Encounters. And they would have just, they would do ghost stories. They would do like alien stuff like that. And there was an episode where they had this medium and they were on the Queen Mary. I'm trying to remember the medium's name. Because he had gray hair, but he had like this just completely jet black mustache. So anyway, so he could sense somebody, because I guess there's supposed to be the ghost of a little girl. I think it's in the pool area. And he's like, I'll never forget, because it's an inside joke. We do this all the time. Is there anybody here? It's exactly how he sounded. Is there anybody here? For some reason, I want to say his name was like Peter Davids or something like that. But Peter David was also a comic book writer. Anyway, so he says it a couple of times, and then you hear this little girl's laughter. And it used to be, it's not the case anymore, but it used to be, my best friend Elliot Miller had his own encounter with ghosts. I have had a couple myself, but he had one as a kid, as a small child. And whenever somebody would tell a a ghost story or something like that, like a true ghost story, where you'd be watching something on TV and it was real ghosts, not like a movie, tears would start to roll down his face. He had no control over it whatsoever. And I remember watching that show. I was at his house and we were watching that episode. And as soon as the medium's like, is there anybody here? And then you hear, hee. I looked over at Elliot because I knew. And sure enough, got tears. And he couldn't even tell. He didn't even know. But yeah, that was kind of interesting. So Agile Monk said Jeff uses a Windows PC. Yes, I do. I do use a Windows PC. Shazama's with us tonight. DB has also popped in. Said they heard Dark Sun mention. Dark Sun's awesome. But Dark Sun's not going to be the next setting that Wizards of the Coast re-releases. Chris Lundgren says the ghost name is Jackie. Aha. Is there anybody here? All right, so that's it for that little sidetrack. Let's jump on into the news because Free League Publishing has begun taking pre-orders for the latest cinematic adventure for Alien, the role-playing game, Evolved Edition. I've got the scoop on Operation Leading Edge. Operation Leading Edge is a complete cinematic adventure for Alien, the role-playing game, Evolved Edition. It is a standalone adventure, but also serves as the second installment of the Jeremiah Saga trilogy. The adventure is designed for 3 to 5 players plus the game mother and lets the players take the roles of a team of colonial marines sent to secure a rich mineral deposit on the remote moon of Jeremiah 6. Just a routine drop and stop mission. What could possibly go wrong? The box set includes the main Operation Leading Edge adventure book, 2 huge double-sided maps, 34 by 22 inches, featuring the 4 decks of the USCSS Cronus starship in great detail, 5 pre-generated characters to choose from, playing cards for personal agendas and NPCs, cardboard tokens for characters and creatures, GM maps, and player handouts are also included. You can pre-order the box set with PDFs for $41.61. Of course, that is from Free League Publishing themselves, which means this will carry an MSRP of $39.99 is my guess. Maybe $44.99, but more likely than not, $39.99. The physical box set is expected to arrive in stores in Q4. So there you have it. More Alien, the role-playing game, Evolved Edition releases. I should also mention many of the Alien, the role-playing game titles are also going to be re-released. You're taking a peek at a shot of all the various stuff that's coming out. So we are going to have the Colonial Marines book. Building Better Worlds is another one. We've got a new miniatures set, and that is going to be with Colonial Marines and Xenomorphs. So a lot of stuff on the horizon. It is going to be arriving later this year. Tessie Trekkie says they've already pre-ordered. They already got the PDF. They need to crack it open. Nice. Jeff Woody Art is with us once again, chiming on in from Korea. So welcome. Tessie Trekkie says they have a joke at their friendly local game store role-playing game club. If you or your characters say, what could possibly go wrong? Something instantly happens to kill or disable the player character. Nice. Very nice. Cyberpunk Red Night City 2045 is now arriving in stores. I've got the lowdown from our Talsorian Games. a monster source book providing every detail about the definitive cyberpunk setting. The 312-page city sourcebook for Cyberpunk Red includes information about the geography, government, and logistics of Night City, including a complete history, information on citizenship and laws, data on transportation, services, utilities, and media. You'll find details on Night City's street-level factions, including 44 gangs, 6 criminal organizations, and 23 security providers. A district-by-district breakdown of the Night City of 2045. 24 districts, each with its own unique character. You'll know who is in charge, who lives there, and what events have happened recently. You'll find over 600 locations. Stores, clinics, gang headquarters, corporate fortresses, mega buildings, and more. All laid out on gorgeous maps, so you'll know exactly where to go the next time you're out for a drive. 99 stat blocks to help you populate Night City are included, from gang mooks to criminal enforcers to corporate security. Even a few everyday people to help make the dark future come alive. The 312-page hardcover is going to carry an MSRP of $60 when it arrives in stores later on this month. The PDF is available right now over at DriveThruRPG for $30. Very cool. This is actually, to my knowledge, this is the largest supplement for Cyberpunk Red outside of the core book. If I remember correctly, I think the core book might be a few pages longer than this. But yes, 312 pages devoted to Night City. Very, very cool. Lona's Cave has joined us. Welcome aboard. On to our next news piece. So, we talked about the first of 2 bundles of holding for Chivalry and Sorcery. So, let's talk about deets on the second deal, which features the Brittannia Game Designs fantasy role-playing game. Look sharp, adventurer! This all-new Chivalry and Sorcery New Lands bundle is the second of 2 offers in progress featuring, yeah, you guessed it, the Chivalry and Sorcery tabletop role-playing game of medieval fantasy adventure from Brittannia Game Designs. If you're new to Chivalry and Sorcery, you're going to want to get the core book presented in the Chivalry and Rising Sun bundle in progress. Then come back to this bundle because this is a new companion offer with recent historical source books, fantasy gazetteers, and full-length campaign adventures. For just $12.95, you'll get all 4 titles in this offer's source book collection with a retail value of $60 as DRM-free PDFs, including the historical campaign guides Dux Bellorum, which is pre-Arthurian Britain, and the Celts, a gazetteer set in the Chivalry and Sorcery fantasy world of Marrakesh, the Mahon Isles, and Chivalry and Sorcery Source Book 1. If you pay more than the current threshold price of $25.38, you'll level up and also get this offer's entire adventure collection with 8 more titles worth an additional $78, including the Earldom of Gar setting book and its Northern Yurtine Caden Bay map, and the 4-part Earldom campaign, Militas to Jaleen. I would have thought maybe that's militias, but not how it's spelled. Across the Earldom, Agents of the Dragon, and Then There Were None, along with the full-length adventure Hill Forts of the Pagans and the scenario anthology Adventures in Urtine. These savings will run through July 6th. Very cool. As I pointed out when we talked about the first bundle, the Chivalry and Rising Sun bundle, I reviewed Chivalry and Sorcery 5th edition. Thought it was very interesting. If you are a fan of like Harn World, games of that nature, I think you would really enjoy it. It is not rules light by any stretch of the imagination. It is very crunchy. Probably, I don't want to say it's the crunchiest role-playing game I've ever encountered, but it's certainly up there. Captain Infinity Time Travel Police is with us right now. Chivalry and Sorcery, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. A long time. It's a name I haven't heard since. Laconic Lane is backing the Consortium Kickstarter right now. Very nice. Very, very cool. Agile Monk does recommend Chivalry and Sorcery. The Brittannia Game Designs did a great job bringing this back, Agile Monk says. All right. DB says they loved CNS when they had it, when they had a few, very few chances to play it. All righty. On our next news piece, because the latest adventure for Pathfinder is out in stores for Paizo Inc., and I've got the lowdown on Hell's Destiny. What destiny awaits Hell itself? War between the Hellsworn nation of Cheliax and its old enemy Andoran ripples across the inner sea. Yet Cheliax's greatest foe might be its own long-oppressed people, including several heroes trapped there when Cheliax declares martial law and seals its borders. These heroes won't just free themselves, they'll unite the Infernal Empire's worst enemies to defeat Cheliax on land, by sea, and even to the depths of Hell itself. Hell's Destiny is a 256-page hardcover adventure path designed for 4 characters, starting at 10th level and reaching 20th level by the campaign's conclusion. This volume also includes a gazetteer of the dynamic port city of Corentin, an exploration into Cheliax's diabolical aristocracy, as well as useful new items, exciting character options, and a host of dangerous monsters. The 256-page hardcover is in stores right now, carries an MSRP of $79.99. If you want to grab just the PDF alone, you could actually go get it for $49.99. And I actually have a copy of it sitting right here. Sammy's working on her review of Hell's Destiny. Oh, no, you know what? I'm sorry. I just held up the wrong book. This is the first. This is Hellbreakers. I know I've got Hell's Destiny somewhere, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got it. I know we had the PDF because, like I said, Sammy's working on her review of it. So, very nice. All right, let's talk about our final news piece. Because available in print and PDF for They Came From Classified is They Came From the Danger Zone. And I've got the skinny from Onyx Path Publishing. Drop kicking a henchman in the jaw, sending them toppling into a nuclear reactor. Rolling around with the villain on the wings of an aircraft mid-flight before sending her screaming into the engines. Hurling a drug kingpin into his very own pit of spike snakes, or snakes and spikes. Emoliating an international terrorist with a well-flicked cigar into a pool of stolen gasoline. Why does the gasoline have to be stolen? All followed by a pithy one-liner, a quip, if you will. Aren't action movies great? They Came From the Danger Zone is the latest in the They Came From line of tabletop role-playing games. Danger Zone sees characters ranging from muscular commandos and buzzing cyborgs to grizzled cops, dangerous clones, and lethal combat masters, taking on the array of evil forces who want to dominate, nuke, or otherwise terrorize the world. They Came From the Danger Zone is a source book for They Came From Classified, but can be used as a companion for any of the They Came From books because it uses the same story path system. They Came from the Danger Zone includes 5 new playable archetypes, including the Clone, the Combat Master, the Commando, the Cop, and the Cyborg. I guess C's are wild. New cinematics, quips, stunts, and fiendish plots. A killer's row of villains and action antagonists for use in this game or other They Came Froms. Everything a director needs for running games directly influenced by the works of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and more. You'll also find 2 full improbable missions you can run straight from the book. The 199-page standard full-color hardcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $44.99 over at DriveThruRPG. If you don't want the PDF, you just want the book, it's $44.99. And if you just want the PDF, you can grab that for $24.99. Sweet. You know, at Gen Con, I have to take a look to see if Onyx Path Publishing is exhibiting there, or if this is like available through like Studio 2. If it's available there through Studio 2, there's no way to set up, interviews with anybody, because normally they're just selling stuff at the Studio 2 area. But I'm going to check that out. I'm going to see what's what. Now, Sammy had reviewed They Came from Beyond the Sea. No, is it They Came from Beneath the Sea? And then also They Came from Beyond the Grave. I always like saying that title. And she liked them. She liked them quite a bit. I think these are very narrative. I don't think there's a lot. Well, I don't want to say there's not a lot mechanically, but I think these are more rules light, more narrative role-playing games. So I wouldn't mind taking a peek. Wouldn't mind. All right. So that is it for the news tonight. Let's see, anybody new pop on into chats? I don't believe so. All right. Anyway, so once again, that was the news for tonight. And I did mention DriveThruRPG a few times. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to be visiting, say, well, I don't know, DriveThruRPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, any of those various and multiple One Bookshelf sites, stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a 5% commission on most of those sales. And all those commissions really do add up to help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like the video, give it a quick thumbs up. If you're watching live, taking part in chat, throw out some hearts or 100% or what have you. And if you're watching on a mobile device, if you got some hype points floating around, always appreciate a few sprinkled on the video. Anything helps. Anything helps. Also want to mention, because I usually point this out like right at the end of the stream. If you are subscribed to the channel and you've selected all notifications, but the videos aren't popping up in your notifications, like when I do reviews and things like that, I have been told by other outlets that you need to unsubscribe and then resubscribe and select all notifications. That should put things back into your feed. Can't tell you for certain if that works, but that is what I have been told, because I've heard from quite a few people who have talked about how they never see the Gaming Gang videos anymore. So got to do what we could do. Kevin R. Smith and Heishka are with us in chat. Welcome. I see Boomerman Dan Webb is joining us as well. Kevin R. Smith says they're not going to do well on the ultimate Grognard Test, even though they're old enough. They probably would score high if they started in middle school like all the other nerds. I wasn't in middle school. I was in grade school. Because in Chicago, we didn't have middle schools. We had 1st through 8th grade, and then you went to high school. So our high schools were 4 years. That's why I thought it was so weird that we had the suburbs will have middle schools. And I think that's a more recent thing in Illinois. Because I don't recall, well, the suburbs that were around Chicago, they were all 4-year high schools too. Bellamere Cleaver has popped on in. Tessie Trekkie says they came from games have some mechanical complexity, particularly their trope cards that are explicitly metagaming, such as, I don't know how we survived that, skips a combat or a danger scene. Ah, that's cool. Very cool. So Heishka, if I'm even pronouncing that correct, is Agile Monk's son. Well, welcome aboard. Very nice. Pete Stracklich has also popped on in. Anywho, so if you enjoy the Gaming Gang and you'd like to find other ways to support the outlet, you got a couple other ways. First of all, you can make a one-time donation by way of PayPal. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Wonderful. And you can also become a monthly member of our Patreon. You'll find links down in the show notes. Also down in the show notes, you're going to find an invite link to our Discord server. Absolutely free to sign up. So be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. Then, of course, during all the live streams, I always like to give a nice shout out to our Patreon members. So tip of the cap to Ben Oldthwaite, Caval, Kevin R. Smith, Talzek, Peaceful Porcupine, Sean O'Donnell, Herman Lutman, Gustavo Cavalho, Kevin King, Game Cat, RPG Munch, Tier 2 DM, Far Adrift, Pete Stracklich, Dan Webb, Tessie Trekkie, The Madman, Agile Monk, and Flint Fireforge. Thank you all very, very kindly. And Boomerman Dan Webb with a $5 super chat says, don't unsub, resub during the live feed, as you'll have to wait an hour to chat after resubbing. Ask me how I know. I can only guess. All right, so I will make sure to point that out from here on out. Also, want to announce our contest winners. So, first off, last night I was doing a giveaway for Beyond the Borderlands issue 1. And I said that you can essentially get into the running to win a PDF copy of it. And that winner is Scott Walker 6947. So, Scott, I don't think you've won before, so all you got to do, email Jeff McAleer at thegaminggang.com and make sure you use the Gmail account that's associated with your YouTube, and then I will get you set up with that PDF. Also should mention, I kind of didn't get that news piece right. So I shared that it was back in print, the issue 1 of Beyond the Borderlands, over at Exalted Funeral. Turns out it's not a new print run. It was that Exalted Funeral had found some additional copies, so they put them back up on the website, because I guess the fine folks over at Swordfish Islands is working on some new edition. So it is not a new print run. It was just back in stock for a very short time because I guess it's sold out. So there's that. Also want to announce the winner for the alternate art cover edition of Ravenloft, The Horror Within for Dungeons and Dragons from Wizards of the Coast. And our winner is Casting Spells 1114. Same thing. If you are the winner, then I need you to shoot an email to Jeff McAleer at thegaminggang.com. Once again, use the Gmail that's associated with your YouTube, and I will need a shipping address, and then I will get that out to you. So there you have it for that. Let's see. Do we have anything we could maybe do a giveaway of tonight? I don't think so, really. All right, fine. We'll do a giveaway for They Came from the Danger Zone. Now I got to come up with a trivia question. Well, I don't know. Damn. I'll have to think of something. I'll actually have to come up with the trivia question during our brief intermission. Because I don't have anything jumping off the oh, okay, I got one. It just has to be like action movie related, is what I was trying to figure out. Okay. So I got one. I've got one. Well, hang on 1 second. There we go. I'll give away a copy to somebody watching live. And then I will also give away a copy to someone who doesn't win during the live stream. And also people who are watching on Memorex. They get that Memorex contest, right? So if you do not win the trivia question and you would like to get into the running to win a copy of They Came from the Danger Zone, then simply like the video, be a subscriber to the channel, and leave a comment in the comment section. And of course, the comment cannot be, this is a comment for the contest, or, I'm commenting to get into the contest. It's got to be a legitimate comment. And then I will randomly select one lucky commenter, and I will announce the winner on Tuesday's show, which I already have our topic for next Tuesday's show. Since everybody was enjoying the little bit of conversation that was going on about Westerns last night, we will talk about 10 classic Western films which would make for fantastic role-playing adventures. That is going to be our topic for Tuesday. So here's your trivia question. Who stars as the action hero in Hell Comes to Frogtown? First person with the correct answer is going to win that PDF. And while you're mulling that over, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
All right, now let's see if we can find first. No, that's not it. No, believe me, it's in there somewhere.
No matter how rough you treat a rebel, it's awfully hard to hurt it. A survey of professional driving schools shows that they use more of our cars than any other kind.
How am I doing? A lot better than yesterday. Turn left.
I can't do it while you're watching me.
Okay, turn left. Here. How does it feel the first time out in traffic, Mr. Moss? Mr. Moss? Mr. Moss? Look out for the truck!
What truck?
Precious, and he thought us delicious. Try some today. We are the Intermission Quartet. Some quartet. We sell refreshments at the Met. At the Met? So if you should want to get delicious ice cream, soft drink, popcorn, and fluffy, we all eat popcorn until we're full. Oh, how I love the soft drinks here. They taste as good as the lager beer. And now our offer ever ends. We'll have an intermission, friend.
If you love great cheese flavor, it's time you tried the snack that's famous for it. Nacho cheese flavored Doritos brand tortilla chips. So for a snack with the great flavor of cheese, try nacho cheese Doritos. They taste as good as they crunch.
Oh, we've got it now.
What?
The one-step and Polaroid's new Time Zero Supercolor film.
Is that cause for rejoicing?
The world's simplest camera loaded with the world's fastest developing color.
Is that true?
You betcha. Now you see your pictures in seconds, not minutes. Look at that color.
Beautiful. What else is new?
The one-step is twice the fun and the color's brighter and sharper than ever.
That's it?
The only Polaroid's got it.
You should tell people about that.
Where have you been?
Time Zero.
Mattel introduces the Battlestar Galactica Collection. You can imagine the colonial warrior against the evil Cylon Centurions.
Cylon Centurions ready? Check. Activate eye scanner. Energize pulsator. Aim laser pistol. On target. Colonial warrior changing scanner to laser. Get it.
Each figure sold separately, batteries not included. Cylon Centurion and Colonial Warrior from the Battlestar Galactica Collection. New from Mattel.
It's Energized Spider-Man, battery not included. Attach the spider clamp, flip the switch, and the motorized web climber starts him climbing, keeps him climbing. Energized Spider-Man, the spider web trap for lifting and pulling. The spider light, you can watch him climb in the dark and pretend he's searching for the enemy. The power pack turns on the spider copter, sold separately.
Spider-Man flies by night.
Energized Spider-Man comes with motorized web climber. Spider copter sold separately by Remco.
Have some Wilkins coffee?
Well, I say, I'll take some.
Surprising how many people are switching to Wilkins coffee.
Welcome to Meadowvale, a town in trouble. But help is on the way from the good Dr. Blake.
In this complex world that we live in, we need all the help we can get.
Whose top-rated program has all the answers for today's problems.
Drugs, alcohol, sex.
Get out of the way!
At the Psychological Research Institute, we have the answer.
But behind these walls lurks a hungry alien.
You have to stop this insane research. That thing isn't satisfied just controlling the minds of the people who watch your TV show.
A swelling brain on a reign of carnivorous terror.
Look directly at the monitor.
No one is safe. No one can escape. And there's no way out. With all the horror of Poltergeist, the chills of Howling Four, and the cold reality of Friday the 13th.
Now you gotta help me.
It's my son, the murderer.
Reanimator's David Gale stars in The Brain. It's mind over matter.
I see Dean Halsey's moonlighting. It's probably a fairly deep cut there. Let's see. We got a few more people who have popped on into chat. Ravenclaw is with us. I see that Utah Mike has popped on in. Mark Edwards has joined us in chat. I think there's one more person. There we go. Ken 175. Might be a first-time visit live in chat for Ken. I don't necessarily recognize the nickname. So yes, the answer to the trivia question is Roddy Piper. And no, you did not have to put Rowdy in front of that because that's not what he's billed. He's not billed as Roddy Piper in the credits. It is Roddy Piper in the credits. So that was Shozama getting it correct. Shozama knows. Just shoot me an email over at jeffmcaleer@thegaminggang.com and I will arrange for your PDF copy of They Came from the Danger Zone. Of course, if you didn't win, still got another copy. For the Memorex viewers and those who did not win watching live, once again, be a subscriber, like the video, leave a comment in the comment section. Max Apocalypse and Bamboozled, great crowd, are popping on in. So there, Max Apocalypse says, Roderick Hell comes to Frogtown, Piper. That was the trivia question, in case you were tuning in a little bit late. Who was the action hero in Hell Comes to Frogtown? Sweet. All right. So tonight, we are going to take the ultimate Grognard test. And these popped up. These are kind of tongue-in-cheek in Dragon Magazine way back in the day. I think they started, I think the first one was like issue 226, 228, something like that. And I do believe they did it a few times. Now, something I should point out, as far as the term Grognard goes, with this test, they're talking about role-playing. Whereas the reality is in tabletop gaming, usually Grognards are war gamers. But that's not the case here. So what you're going to do is score along at home if you can. And I already have my final score, so I can share that at the end. So for every one of these questions that you answer yes, take a point. First off, if you ever rolled 3d6 in order, take a point. If you've ever used to hit armor class 0, or as we lovingly call it, THACO. If you ever owned dice with crayon-filled numbers. If you ever played a role-playing game in a basement. If you ever used graph paper in a role-playing game. If you ever read Dragon Magazine cover to cover. If you ever used a caller during a role-playing game. If you ever used a marching order. If you've lost a character to a save or die effect, take a point. If you know what a 10-foot pole is truly for, that's not to keep people away. I wouldn't touch that person with a 10-foot pole. It's not for dungeon crawling. But if you know what the 10-foot pole is actually used for, take a point. If you've ever played without miniatures. If you've ever used a wandering monster table. If you bought a module simply because of the cover art. If you owned a Trapper Keeper or any other kind of binder, really, full of character sheets Now, keep in mind, this isn't just years ago. If you have like a binder with character sheets now, that's worth a point. If you've known your character's encumbrance, if you own the wood grain box set for original Dungeons and Dragons, if you bought a TSR module from a hobby shop, and it has to specifically be a hobby shop, not a game store. If you read gaming magazines other than Dragon and Dungeon, take a point. Different Worlds, Shadis or Shadis, I forget how they wanted it pronounced. Those were a couple of my favorites. I used to get Different Worlds all the time. If you knew the difference between basic, expert, advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and BECMI, take a point. If you ever had a favorite TSR artist, if you called it Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, as opposed to just saying Dungeons and Dragons or D&D. If you've read module box text aloud in your best narrator voice. If you've ever had a Game Master screen which is completely covered in notes. If you knew what the module code meant, as an example, B2, X1, S1, DL1, etc. If you ever died during character creation, which we know is not a D&D thing, there's quite a lot of you out there. We know what we're talking about. If you've ever played a starting character who had 1 hit point, take 1 point. If you ever lost levels to a level drain. If you ever failed a save versus poison and died instantly. If you ever had a character permanently petrified or turned to stone. If you ever had a character who got killed by a trap they never saw coming. If you ever had a character that was eaten by a giant monster. If you ever had a magic sword or magic weapon destroyed, take a point. And if you ever encountered a rust monster and panicked, take a point. I see Histio is with us in chat. Welcome back. Velimir Cleaver said, I thought Grognards were original members of Napoleon's lifeguard, so they are allowed to complain about the quality of the provided grog. They complained about everything. So, yes, you didn't have to be a member of Napoleon. I thought it was Napoleon's old guard, not lifeguard. But it was essentially a veteran in Napoleon's army who had seen many battles, who, yes, because they had seen so much that they could have sat around and just, complained all the time about stuff. They were gripers, basically. Which, interestingly enough, it carries over quite well to Grognards as far as role-playing games go. Hey, we're not done with the tests yet. Still got more questions. If you remember when Dragon was still digest-sized, take a point. Have you ever mailed away for something advertised in Dragon? I did. I remember I sent away for 1-page bulge, and gosh, now I can't remember the damn name of the game. It was from Steve Jackson Games, and it was rescuing the hostages in Iran. Like I said, off the top of my head, I don't. All day long, I remembered the game title, and now suddenly I'm like, blank. But yes, I remember specifically seeing those ads in Dragon. So there we go. If you ever entered a contest from Dragon, take a point. If you looked forward to reading the wormy comic strip in Dragon, if you enjoyed Phineas Fingers, I always liked Phineas Fingers. Art was pretty bad, but I enjoyed it. That was my favorite of the comics in Dragon. If you read Sage Advice religiously, take a point. And of course, if you used material from an article in Dragon in a campaign. And if you still own old issues of Dragon. So you might be a grognard if you still say save versus death ray. Yes, W Forge is correct. Raid on Iran. That is the name of it. It was also kind of like a one-page rule game. But yep, that was, I want to say, I think that was maybe the first thing I had sent away from Dragon. All right, so guess there's some freezing going on over on YouTube. I just took a peek. It's not on my end. It's a YouTube thing. Reality is, I don't know if anybody else was having some issues. I was having some issues with YouTube and X and Blue Sky today, that things weren't loading. So I don't know if it's another, big hacker attack or what. Anyway, back to our questions. If you know THACO right off the top of your head without looking it up, if you can identify TSR artists by style alone, and if you judge modules by the cover art first, if you think Ascending Armor Class is the new system, I actually kind of do, funny enough. I think this is probably going to be yes for just about all of you out there. Do you own more rule books than you'll ever use? Well, then take a point. If you have at least one binder filled with campaign notes. If you have dice in your collection that are older than some of your players at your game table, take a point. If you remember when fantasy art was mainly brush and canvas. And finally, our 50th question. If you remember exactly where you were when you first played Dungeons and Dragons, take a point. All right, so total up all your points. If you have 0 to 10, you're a novice adventurer. 11 to 20, you are a veteran. If you have 21 to 30, yes, you are a grognard. If you have 31 to 40, then you are an elder grognard. And if you have 41 or more points, you could probably host an hour-long presentation about the early years of role-playing games. Or maybe simply Dungeons and Dragons, since D&D was essentially the focus of these questions. So my final score is 38 points. So I am an elder grognard. I did not have the wood grain box. I have to be honest. I know of when TSR's, actually, I don't even think it was, well, maybe it was TSR. I do know of when Dragon was a digest. It was more like a newsletter. than anything else. And I said no because I didn't read Dragon magazine at that point in time. So yeah, there were a few in here that it was for me were a no. Like, could I calculate THACO off the top of my head? No. Could I, did I know my encumbrance for my character? Not really. I'm sure I had characters I did, but it's not something where it'd be like, oh yeah, well, I know the encumbrance. Max Apocalypse says they had 30, but no idea because there was a freeze. All right. So let's see. Bamboozle Great Crowd says they're going to be running Crooked Moon at Games Plus in Mount Prospect, Illinois. Yeah, I used to go to Games Plus quite a bit. I haven't been there in 15 years, maybe. But I remember when they were on the other side of the train tracks. All right. So Cthulhu got 29. DB's with me with 38. Shazam has got 40. Ravenclaw 35. Jeff Woody Art has 29. Agile Monks 48 points. Almost the perfect 50. Chris Lundgren's 37. We already saw that Max Apocalypse had 30, but they're not sure how many they may have missed because things froze up. Kevin R. Smith says 21. Actually, the chat is kind of jumping all over the place suddenly. Harvey Chuckle says miss out on all the dragon points because they've read White Dwarf. Not too shabby. I used to get White Dwarf quite a bit. And it was before, their miniatures were a thing. Some of the first issues I picked up of White Dwarf were like role-playing related. Kevin R. Smith said, Kevin R. Smith's pointing out to Harvey Chuckles, you did give yourself a point for reading a gaming magazine besides Dragon, right? Agile Monk says, I think I need to rethink some of my life choices after this test. All right. So Max Apocalypse says 37 after finding the test and filling in the blanks. I did tweak some, so they weren't exactly like the Dragon magazine. Like the Phineas Fingers question isn't in there. Yeah, I dropped a couple and put a couple of different ones in. But for the most part, the vast, vast majority of that test was from Dragon magazine. Captain Infinity Time Travel Police says, White Dwarf was the bomb, especially in the early 80s. I still buy back issues occasionally. It probably would have been late 80s when I first checked out White Dwarf. We got a little time. It's actually just a few minutes after the hour. So we could talk a little bit about old gaming magazines. Shazam said they would ready White Dwarf at the comic book shop, Dragon at the bookstore, but would take the Dragon magazine home. Oh, they would read. It said ready. Dale Errett's with us in chat. Good to see you. They liked White Dwarf before it was all GW 40K. You mean WH 40K? Yeah. W4 says, I remember Phineas Fingers and What's New with Phil and Dixie. Yes. And Phil Foglio went on to, Phil Foglio and his wife are still working on stuff. It's Girl Genius. It's a webcomic, but they also sell, physical graphic novels of it. Chris Langer is asking, what's the best adventure in Dragon magazine? That I can't tell you because I don't remember. Even though I have all the issues of Dragon and Dungeon that I transferred over from CD. It was either a CD or DVD that they sold. I think it was a DVD actually. But many of them I've never read. The reality is a lot of the adventures, a lot of the stuff in Dragon Magazine and Dungeon, let's be honest, it's kind of crappy. Wasn't necessarily, oh boy. Shazama said they've got almost a complete Dungeon Magazine set of the first 100. They're missing 2 issues. Oh, that's pretty impressive. Max Apocalypse says, I regret throwing out the Different Worlds mags they had with X-Men and New Teen Titans write-ups. One of the things that Different Worlds, I recall, set it apart was they had a good focus on Call of Cthulhu early on. And Different Worlds was not a Chaosium Inc. magazine. It wasn't a house organ, right? Like we used to pick up General Magazine. Not every issue. We would usually try to take a look to see what was in the issue because for the most part, General Magazine was just a house organ for Avalon Hill. So it would have, new optional rules and errata and scenarios and that for Avalon Hill games. But I know one of the issues of General that I think just about all of us in the Gamers Guild had a copy of was the Circus Maximus issue, because we used all those rules for Circus Maximus because it really did actually improve the game quite a bit. But let's see. So yeah, Different Worlds. I remember they had a lot of Call of Cthulhu stuff in it. A lot of Call of Cthulhu adventures, a good amount of optional material or like bestiary entries and stuff like that. W. Forge points out Challenge Magazine, which was from Game Designer Workshop, was their house magazine. Right. That was a house organ as well. Dragon wasn't a house organ early on. I don't think Dragon really becomes a house organ until maybe around issue 30-ish, thereabouts, because I remember there used to be some legitimate reviews in Dragon Magazine for other role-playing games, not just Dungeons and Dragons stuff. And then gradually you saw less and less of that. Because even Dungeon Magazine early on had articles about other games. It wasn't just Dungeons and Dragons. I really should go back and start, reading through them. Because I honestly have not read probably 95% of the issues that I've got digitally. So, and I know I've considered, maybe I should try reading an issue a day. I got other stuff that's important. I got other stuff that needs to be tackled, right? I got review stuff I got to do. So Agile Monk with a $4.99 super chat. Jeff deserves a super chat for putting this together, though now Agile Monk is more a bit concerned about their mental states. Oh, come on. Max Apocalypse with a $5 super chat says, agreed with Agile Monk. Huzzah for the chat. So let's see. So yes, I remember Challenge Magazine. I didn't pick it up much, even though I would get GDW stuff. I had quite a few of the little black books. I had the little black box for Traveler. I think I had the second printing. because I would not have picked up, and that was another game that I picked up over at the Sutler's Wagon Hobby Shop. And I would used to pick up some of their board games as well. But I always thought their board games were, I mean, they were fine, but they were never like Avalon Hill, you know. If I remember correctly, I think they usually had paper maps too, which I was not a fan of. Nowadays, I'm like, okay, I get it. There are people out there who like the paper maps. I don't live in an area that I have problems with things warping because of humidity in that. So I prefer to have a mounted board. Let's see. CTA there. If I take the ampersand, it would be Octavare. What was the Heroes Games one? Adventurers Club? It may have been. It might have been that. W4 said Dragon had a section called Ares inside Dragon that covered other games. There was also a magazine called Ares, and that was from, I'm trying to remember, I think, was it SPI? Pretty sure it was SPI. There were actually a few pretty good games in Ares. Some were not so great, just like Strategy and Tactics, which is still around to my knowledge. Problem is, Strategy and Tactics and Decision Games, they're famous for not playtesting stuff. So, and that has been the case for years. And I mean, they're still cranking out board games now. Okay, I should rephrase that because I haven't seen anything from Decision Games in probably about 5 years. But 5 years ago, they were still cranking out stuff that would have looked pretty standard fare for 1979. So, yes, Auto Duel Quarterly for Car Wars. Yeah, we were big in the Car Wars. We would always be picking up Car Wars stuff. We didn't play a ton. Car Wars was one of those games that always felt cooler in concept than in execution. And I'm not trying to pick on Steve Jackson Games, but that was a reality of it, right? I mean, everybody would sit around and they would, they'd create the vehicles and stuff. And I remember when Truck Stop came out and it was like, oh yeah, we're going to create our semi. And there was actually, I don't think it was part of Auto Duel Quarterly. I think it was a separate zine size because Auto Duel Quarterly was kind of like zine size. And there was an adventure campaign that came out after Truck Stop, and it was essentially that the truckers had I'm trying to remember, I think I remember right. I think they were trying to deliver some sort of serum or antitoxin or, something about a virus. And our friend Scott Weagle, who on occasion pops into chat, was our kind of like our game master, because normally you didn't need like a referee for Car Wars. Although I think the reality is Car Wars probably worked better if you had someone who was operating as a referee. W4 says Car Wars jumped the shark with Boat Wars. I think it may have jumped the shark before that. because it just got to the point where it was like, man, it's like there was, I mean, when they started coming out with like tanks and helicopters and gyrocopters, it was like, all right, come on. It was best when it was, you know, just wheeled vehicles and individuals. But here was the thing, and I've said this before about Car Wars. You would play for 3 hours, and it would essentially be like 10, 15 seconds of, you know, like game time had passed. Supposedly the big thing was, you know, auto dueling was this, you know, just huge rage, and that you would have like, you know, random fights on the highways, and then, you know, there were helicopters all over the place bringing you the coverage and stuff. And it's like, could you imagine the sort of ADHD people would have had watching television like that? It's like, all right, here's 20 seconds of this, 20 seconds, 15 seconds, 10 seconds. Speaking of Car Wars, who was it just said they were big? There we go. Chris Lundgren talking about big fan of Starfleet battles. Yes. We played more Starfleet battles than we did Car Wars. That was something else that we bought a bunch of stuff for. That was another game that kind of jumped the shark when they now it's with Amarillo Game Design. I've not had an opportunity to take a peek at it, but they when it was with Task Fleet Games, and it originally came out in a Ziploc bag, just like Car Wars originally came out in a little Ziploc bag. Had people argue with me, oh no, it was a clamshell box. That was a couple years after Car Wars was even out, when Steve Jackson Games started doing the clamshell boxes, and Task Fleet Games started doing cardboard boxes. Keith Lewis says it's Amarillo Design Bureau. Thank you very much. But yeah, we played. I used to play as the Gorn. Why? I have no idea. I think it was probably one of these situations where it was like, okay, everybody roll dice. Who gets the first peg? Okay, Federation, Klingon, Romulan, so forth. I ended up with the Gorn, which was fine. I was actually pretty good at that. Something I talk about all the time whenever Starfleet Battles gets mentioned. If you enjoy Starfleet Battles, but you think it got a bit too rules heavy, which in my opinion it did. And we're talking, it got heavy in like, I don't know, 3 years in, maybe. It was like when they released like update 4 or something like that, it was like, oh, okay. Kevin R. Smith says, I heard there was a Starfleet Battles role-playing game at one point. Well, I know there was a board game, Federation and Empire, if I remember correctly. I think that's something else that is also with Amarillo Design Bureau. And that was sort of a strategic level Starfleet Battles, where I guess people could use that to basically game a campaign and then use the conflicts as far as for scenarios for Starfleet Battles. I don't know. But yes, Prime Directive, that was a role-playing game. I do not think that is around anymore. So yes, W. Forge talking about Starfire. Starfire 1, 2, and 3. Essentially the same concept. as Starfleet battles, but faster playing, bigger battles, because your ships don't have like 4 quadrants of shields and various different like, I almost said devices, but that's not it. Various different aspects of the ship that gets destroyed, kind of like Car Wars. It's basically, so as an example, if I remember right, it's now, okay, you got to remember, it has been, probably 40 years or more since I saw Starfire. But if I remember correctly, the way your like stat block for the ship was. So if you're familiar with Starfleet battles, you've got the ship, and then you've got these various different boxes representing, photon torpedoes, the bridge, engineering, whatever, right? And then you've got all these boxes of shields. And you're supposed to take your ship sheet and put it like in a plastic sleeve so that you could use like an oil pencil to mark stuff off, because you can get things back, right? Well, with Starfire, it's just a line. So you would have like the ship name, and let's say it's a destroyer, and it would be something like SS. So those would be 2 shields, and then you might have A armor. Then you have like C command. Yeah. So you wouldn't take like 50 points of damage just to get through like the shields on a side of the ship. You would mark stuff off. So like I said, you would have like, you could easily have 10 ships on a side in a battle and still finish that up in 3 hours. Whereas Starfleet battles, 10 ships on a side, that would be a long day of gaming. I'll tell you that right now. And I honestly think that Starfleet battles kind of emerged a little bit from Starfire, because they were from the same company, and I think they had the same designer, at least early on. But Bamboozle Great Crowd says a really cool role-playing game is Battle Stations. Seems to ring a bell. Ring a bell a little bit. So anyway, as far as gaming magazines, though, the ones I tended to read, and that's one of the funny things about our hobby, because gamers nowadays, they have it good. I mean, they really do. I mean, there's such a glut of games out there, and just pick a genre, and there's multiple games and multiple systems and multiple approaches to those genres. We didn't have that. And nowadays, you can pretty much find out about a game. You can get a review of a game essentially within a week or 2 of it being out in stores. Sometimes, like here, you'll get reviews before they hit stores. A lot of times, all depends on if there's an embargo or not, when I receive the review copy and so forth. Back in the day, we wouldn't see a review of something for months, maybe a year after it came out. And one of the magazines I always liked, and I want to say, if I remember correctly, John Zinzer from AEG was I think he was the publisher, maybe he was the editor. And it was, I mentioned it earlier, I'm not positive on the pronunciation. I think it's supposed to be Shadis, but we always called it Shadis, Shadis. And it was mainly focused on role-playing games. And it was another one of these magazines. It was a little bit like Different Worlds, where it would, if memory serves, where it would have articles about different games. You might get some like monsters, or you might get some optional rules, or you may get some adventures. And then there was also like a news section and reviews. And most issues had a good number of reviews. But it used to be funny because I'd sit there and I'd pick up the magazine and I'd read something. It'd be a review of something that I had picked up that sucked, but I had bought it like 9 months earlier. And then the review would say, yeah, this isn't all that great. And I'd be like, yeah, where were you 9 months ago? Could have saved me some dough. W4 says, White Dwarf always looked cool, but I believe it was more focused on wargaming. It eventually did. Early on, White Dwarf was a role-playing game magazine. I'm not super familiar with early issues of White Dwarf, but even Games Workshop started off as a game store that was selling D&D. And weren't some of the first Games Workshop releases that they published, weren't they like third-party D&D? Thought so. Laconic Lane asks, anybody here use Cities and Towns by Cobalt Press? They already have spectacular settlements. I don't know if I need another version of something so similar. Well, reality is I'm not familiar with spectacular settlements, so I can't really tell you anything. Cities and Towns is a solid book. It's a good book, but I mean, it's possible that your spectacular settlements kind of covers the same stuff, same tables, things like that. Harvey Chuckle says they covered Traveler too. Kevin R. Smith says Games Workshop actually started out selling finely carved chess and backgammon sets and the like. That's why it was called a game, called a workshop. I think I remember hearing that. Just didn't pop into my head. But yeah, I've seen some like photographs of the original Games Workshop and stuff. And just like, if I remember correctly, the Dungeon Museum in Lake Geneva closed. And Ellie and I got into a debate when we went up there, because we went and visited it. And it was kind of cool to see, a lot of old stuff we hadn't seen in years and years. But if I remember right, Elliot said that had been the store, and I was like, no, the dungeon was actually a store that you walked down into, whereas the dungeon museum was kind of like a house, but wasn't the only place that was a business that was a house in Lake Geneva, but still. W4 asks, anybody remember the City Books series or the Central Casting books? I remember I can picture the covers of the City Book series. I don't remember the publisher off the top of my head. Central Casting I've heard of because they were like NPC books, but I don't recall that. Pete's Reckledge says Spectacular Settlements has PDF sheets to fill out your custom village, town, city, super fun. Location I create for my game is my most mysterious NPC. For the most part, cities and towns, the focus there, and it's also the same with the Realms book. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the title, from Cobalt Press. The focus in those books are more the personalities. So your NPCs and things like that. Now, Cities and Towns does have tables, and it does have information about towns and, you know, various different businesses and things like that. But for the most part, the Kobold Press books, their focus is more on creating personalities for cities, towns, nations, and stuff like that. So, W. Ford says Janelle Jacquet's helmed the Central Casting books. So, Kevin R. Smith says Castles and Crowns. Yeah, you're right. That is it. That is the Kobold Press. Gotta remember, I got, you know, hundreds of books rattling around in my head, and board games and stuff like that. All right. So, Boomerman Dan Webb says 1 hour timeout is over. I got 40 points. Nice. Sweet. All right. So that is it for tonight's show. Just kind of hanging around, just goofing off for the most part. Wasn't like we had a serious subject or anything like that. Try to stay away from too many serious subjects. But if you tuned in late, next week there will only be a show on Tuesday. The rest of the week I have to house sit, pet sit, essentially. So we will have a live show on Tuesday. I'm going to do my best to shoot some raw video, a bunch of raw video over the weekend. So you will still have videos popping up throughout next week. I should have a couple of reviews up this weekend as well. Tuesday's topic will be 10 Western films which would make great role-playing adventures. So I will put together a list of 10 movies that I think would make for fantastic RPG adventures or even campaigns. And of course, I will be looking for those of you hanging out in chat to share your thoughts as well. Very cool. Very nice. Let's see. Something else I was going to mention off the top of my head. Oh, as far as my Swedish death cleaning, I will probably roll that out on the last week of June. And I am considering just donating all proceeds, well, outside of, you know, your cost to ship stuff out. I am considering donating all proceeds to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. I have done 50-50s in the past, but I think I will probably donate everything I get. I just want to move stuff out. You know, I just want to get stuff into people's hands who are going to use it as opposed to just sitting collecting dust. So, and Chris Langren, of course, has to share his Western. Can't wait till next week. Chris has to throw out the Cowboys. Although I will point out the Cowboys wouldn't have been on my list unless the player characters were all the kids. I guess that'd be an idea. Anywho. All righty. So that is it for this time out. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watch live and took part in chat, you get a tip of the cap because not only are you keeping me company, you're also keeping each other company while I'm sharing the news or sitting there going through a list of the ultimate Grognard Test questions. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't get an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy life to watch any of the videos here on the Gaming Gang channel. And of course, if you are watching after the fact, be sure to get into tonight's contest so you can win a copy of, I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, yeah, they came from the Danger Zone, the latest release from Onyx Path Publishing. So if you want to get into the running to win a copy of that, simply be a subscriber, like the video, and share a comment in the comments section. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. Whenever you're not watching videos here on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are never going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Then, of course, if you like the video, by all means, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you do subscribe, be sure to ring that bell and select all notifications, because that way you'll not only find out when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central, you'll also be informed when I share other videos, such as my recent review of the Creature Codex Revised. I got to move further over. From Cobalt Press. Yes. All right, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend. I will be back on Tuesday. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. And as always, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.